Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at another budget deck from BT04 utilizing the new starter decks, and this time we have the new black starter deck to go over. So the new black starter deck definitely adds a lot of new powerful and interesting tools that we could think about playing around with, and it has the potential to be a really decent deck and a really spicy deck with a couple of tech choices and upgrades. So, going over the deck, starting with the Digiatam, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Kapurimon. So this is the Kapurimon from BT02, and this Kapurimon is really good because it has this nice inheritable ability of during your turn, while this Digimon has Reboot, then it gets plus 1000 DP. So this is just a very standard DP boosting Digitama, and really the Digitama slot doesn't matter as much considering black doesn't have the greatest Digitamas. I just felt like compared to everything else that the deck is going to be doing and the cards that I want to be utilizing, this version of Kapurimon is definitely the best Digitama that we have currently. And then the second best Digitama that we have to be using in this style of deck is going to be 1 copy of Kapurimon. So this is the starter deck Kapurimon, and it's doing the exact same thing as the other Kapurimon, where it's just DP boosting your Digimon, except the condition is blocker instead of reboot. So between the two, you should have your bases covered on how you could DP boost your Digimon, but again, it doesn't necessarily matter what you use as your main, what you use as the sub. It all depends on the types of cards you're supporting each of them with, and I'm choosing to support Reboot a little bit more than Blocker in this style of deck, but black is a very flexible color on how you could build it, so feel free to experiment on what you want to be using. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 4 copies of ToyAgumon. So this version of ToyAgumon is the BT02 version, and this ToyAgumon is still a really good Digimon to be using, just because he's giving the nice inheritable ability of Reboot. So Reboot is the main mechanic that I'm going to be playing around with next to Blocker, so it only makes sense that I definitely want to try to have Reboot on my higher levels if they don't already have it, so that way I can make my Digimon as powerful as they possibly could be. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Commandramon. So Commandramon is definitely a really decent Digimon to be utilizing just because he is part of the D-Brigades. So I am, in this style of deck, going to be running a D-Brigade package just because the D-Brigade package is relatively aggressive. And on top of which, this Commandramon stat-wise is still relatively good because he's fulfilling that value-efficient vanilla card, where he's just got a low play cost, low evo cost, and some decent DP for his level, all making him the perfect choice of a card to run. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Commandramon. So this is the BT04 version of Commandramon, and since we're already playing the D-Brigade package, might as well just start rounding it out and wrapping it up with the other Commandramons. So what this Commandramon is doing is he has the nice on-delete ability where we get to check the top 3 cards of our deck, and then we get to play 1 Commandramon from among them for free, and then the rest go to the bottom. So this is just pretty good because it's always trying to have a body on board, so when he gets deleted, obviously either through the opponent's ability or you trying to check the opponent's security, then hopefully another Commandramon will be taking his spot, and that's just really good because it's really aggressive because, again, we're just trying to have a body on board to push for as much pressure as we possibly can. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Commandramon. So this Commandramon is the Commandramon that comes from the starter deck, and he is really good because he is just a very aggressively statted Digimon. So for a level 3, he has 5000 DP, 0 to evolve, and 4 to hard play. Obviously, we're trying to be playing this card for free off of Commandramon and our other D-Brigade cards, so we don't necessarily care about that. Most of the time, we're just going to be evoing him or playing him for free, so just the 5000 DP stat line could matter, and he's definitely looking to be a very good rookie to be utilizing for that alone. On top of the fact that he's a D-Brigade, so he just has all of the D-Brigade synergy, and he's another Commandramon. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Greymon. So this is the BT02 Greymon, and this Greymon is really good just because he has this nice inheritable ability where during your turn, while this Digimon has Reboot, then it gains Jamming. So obviously this pairs very nicely with ToyAgumon giving Reboot, so that way whatever Digimon he's Digivolving up into will also gain Jamming, and that's just pretty good because we could be pretty aggressive with that, so that way our higher levels could be very safe to aggress onto the opponent's security, and that's all we're really looking to gain out of the card, is just trying to ensure that safety. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Sealsdramon. So Sealsdramon is another D-Brigade card, but it's also going to be acting as one of the deck's dedicated blockers, just because he has the blocker ability. Unfortunately, he does have the you lose 2 memory when attacking, but you're almost never going to be attacking with this card unless it's for game, and more often than not, you're just going to be utilizing it just because it is a relatively decently statted blocker. On top of the fact that he is just another D-Brigade card to be playing around with. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of DarkTyrannomon. So DarkTyrannomon is another blocker, which is pretty good, so that way we could try to wall out the opponent as early as we possibly can, so we could wait to see our pieces and try to stall the game that way. Or, if we wanted to, we could also use him as another tempo tool, just because he does have a really low evo cost of 1, so because we already are playing another blocker in the deck, we don't feel as bad digivolving on top of him, just because, again, we already have another blocker, and he evos for 1, allowing us to be a little bit more tempo efficient than some of the other champions that we have to be working with. Next, on to the ultimates, I'm going to be running 4 copies of MetalGreymon. So this version of MetalGreymon is the BT02 version of MetalGreymon, and this MetalGreymon is still very fantastic to be playing around with just because he natively has the reboot ability. So pair that up with this version of Greymon, and we have a early game jammer, which is pretty good, on top of which he is a little bit safer just because he does have the reboot ability, making himself become active so that way the opponent can't necessarily swing into him. So he's really good for that already, but what we're really looking to gain out of the card also is the fact that he has a nice inheritable ability where during your turn, while this Digimon has Reboot, it also gains Security Attack +1, making our higher levels even more aggressive than they normally would be by allowing us to deal more damage to the opponent's security with that extra security check. And those 2 elements combined just make MetalGreymon just still a very powerful card to be utilizing. And then the last ultimate of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Tankdramon. So Tankdramon is one of the better cards to round out the D-Brigade package with, just because he has this nice ability where during your turn, when one of your other Digimon with D-Brigade and its typing is deleted, then we get to check the top 2 cards of our deck and play 1 Commandramon among them for free, and then the rest go to the bottom. So this is really good because we could just combo it with our Commandramons and be very aggressive with our Commandramons. We also could give it Reboot and Jamming, so that way he could at least aggress himself, because ordinarily it feels kind of bad aggressing with this card and having it get deleted when we have all of the synergy with the other D-Brigades that we could be playing around with. So making sure it has Reboot and Jamming definitely is another powerful thing we could do with the card, so that way we don't feel as bad sitting on it, so he could still at least attempt to do something. But regardless, just being able to replay bodies on board is really, really powerful, and this ability stacks the more you have on the field. So let's just say you have 2 Tankdramons on the field, and then you swing with a Commandramon, then both of them will trigger, and then you'll check the top 2, and then see if there's a Commandramon, and then if not, you could check again. And this is really powerful because it can spawn multiple bodies really quickly if you're lucky enough to see all of your Commandramons on the top. So Tankdramon, just rounding out the D-Brigade package, is still just very, very powerful, and as such, why we definitely want to run it. Next, on to the Megaz, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Darkdramon. So Darkdramon is going to be the boss monster for the D-Brigade side of the deck, and this card is still just a very fantastic card to think about playing around with because he natively has the Rush ability. So when he comes onto the field, he could swing the turn you play him, but he also has a nice on-play ability to complement the fact that he has Rush, where you can return up to 5 Digimon with D-Brigade in its typing from your trash to the top of your deck in any order, and then for each of them you gain 2 memory. So basically, ideally, you want to play him for 3 because you'll be returning 5 D-Brigades from your trash to your deck. So having a Mega that you could just hard play for 3 that also can attack the same turn you play it is just really, really good, on top of him being a D-Brigade himself. So he is just, again, rounding out the D-Brigade package and the D-Brigade side of the deck, so that way we can be as aggressive as we possibly can be. But the reason why we want to be this aggressive to begin with is because we are going to be utilizing the new Blitz Greymon from the Black Starter deck. So I'm going to be running 4 copies of him just because I want to see him as often as I possibly can, and this card is probably the more of the center point of the deck and what's making the deck as powerful as it possibly could be. So what he's doing is he natively has Security Tech +1, which is already good because he's at least going to be very aggressive onto the opponent's security, and then he also has this really good main ability of Digiburst 2, where one of your Digimon gets plus 4000 DP until the end of your opponent's next turn. So this is a persistent buff, and the buff lasts all the way up until the end of the opponent's turn, which is really powerful, but we really care about just gaining that plus 4000 DP, making whatever Digimon we want that much more aggressive. And this combos really well with the D-Brigade side of things because of his Digiburst ability to try to help fill up our trash even faster with our D-Brigades, so that way we could get Darkdramon out even faster. So Darkdramon is a card we don't necessarily want to Digivolve up into, and one we'd rather hard play, so we just need a Digimon we actually want to Digivolve up into, and that role is going to be going to BlitzGreymon. But BlitzGreymon just has some really good overall synergy with the deck, and why we still definitely want to run him, because we could make a really powerful stack between him and MetalGreymon and all of the reboot stuff, so we could do some very powerful things with the next card in the deck, which is going to be the only option card in the deck, and that's going to be 3 copies of Final Zubagon Punch. So the main reason why we're playing BlitzGreymon the way we are in this style of deck using the D-Brigade is all for Final Zubagon Punch. So what Final Zubagon Punch is doing is it has the main ability where one of your Digimon gets plus 3000 DP until the end of the opponent's next turn, and then if that Digimon has 16k DP or more, then that Digimon gains the blocker ability, the reboot ability, and security tech +1. And then it has the nice security ability of being able to add itself to our hand, which is always nice, so that way we can figure out when is the best time to utilize the card. But the fact that we could use BlitzGreymon to make whatever we want even stronger, even himself, is definitely really, really nice. So just BlitzGreymon's ability alone can make him at 16k, plus Final Zubagon Punch can make him at 19k, and that's still really, really strong. Or if we just have a really well-stacked BlitzGreymon with all of the reboot cards, then hopefully the Kapurimon will be underneath, and he'll naturally be at 13 during your turn. So that way we don't have to do anything to make Final Zubagon Punch on BlitzGreymon as powerful as we possibly can be, but the whole idea of the deck is to use BlitzGreymon with a whole bunch of security tech to try to push and pressure the opponent as early as we possibly can, and then try to close out the game with the D-Brigade aggressive package. So with Final Zubagon Punch giving BlitzGreymon an additional security check, he'll be able to at least hit for 3, and then with MetalGreymon underneath, he'll be able to hit for 4, and that's just really, really powerful because we could also give him jamming, so that way he could aggress very safely onto the opponent's security, and then we, again, can try to use all of the D-Brigade stuff to try to have as sticky as a board as we possibly can, and or just try to help close out the game with the rush ability off of Darkdramon. So Zubagon Punch and BlitzGreymon are working very, very well together, and I think it's a very powerful package paired up with everything else that the deck is doing. And then as far as the last card of the deck, it is going to be 3 copies of Izzy. So Izzy is probably the best memory fixing tamer that we have access to next to Marcus, just because we are playing with Greymons, so we could think about utilizing Marcus, but regardless, Izzy is still just fulfilling a really good role of being that memory fixing tamer, where if our memory is ever less than 3, then he'll always just hard set it to 3, so that way we can make our plays as powerful as we possibly could. And then on top of which, he does have this really nice on-play ability, where we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, and then if they're all black, we get to gain a memory, and then on top of that, we get to place them back on top in any order. So because we are playing D-Brigades and looking at the top of our deck and rearranging it so that way it benefits our D-Brigades is definitely another really powerful and important aspect of the card. And on top of which, we could also utilize it for a little bit of consistency, where if we need to see a particular card sooner rather than later, then Izzy can help stack our deck for us with his ability. But regardless, Izzy is just another fantastic card to just help the deck flow and synergize with each other, so I definitely want to be utilizing him as much as I possibly can. And then, as I mentioned before, black is just a relatively flexible color on all of the types of tools that you want to be utilizing, depending on what you feel like you actually want to be playing. So you could think about playing the Promo Tsunorizumon, just because the Promo Tsunorizumon could give whatever you're Zubagon punching the piercing ability, on top of which, paired up with Blitz Greymon, if there's another Mega on the field, then they could easily hit the 13k mark for piercing. Even some of the level 5s can hit 13k with Blitz Greymon's ability, so Tsunorizumon is just another really good card to think about utilizing for his abilities, whether it's on the field or in the inheritable. Then you could also think about utilizing ToyAgumon, just because if you want to play a little bit more defensively, then ToyAgumon will reward you by allowing you to draw cards as long as your opponent didn't attack you with a Digimon that turn. So drawing is one of the things that black has a hard time doing, so it's nice that we have the ToyAgumon and by extension the Greymon from the starter decks to help us draw cards with. And then if you wanted to, you could take the deck in a couple of different directions, where you could utilize more blockers or more reboots, or you could even play a Greymon-based black deck, just because Marcus is a card. So if you wanted to, you could run War Greymon, just because he natively has blocker and reboot, and he evos for 3, so he's just another really good card to think about utilizing. On top of which, if you just want to play a more traditional Blastamon Zubagon Punch style of deck, then you could also just run Blastmon and change the deck to remove the D-Brigade stuff to accommodate more of the cards that like to interact with Blastmon. Or if you want to focus a little bit more on Digiburst and you still also want to play the Greymon stuff, then Black War Greymon is another really fantastic card, just because he's another card that can help with the overall aggression of the deck, because his Digiburst ability allows him to unsuspend himself, so he could swing multiple times, and if you're able to Zubagon punch him, then he could basically swing for all of the opponent's security paired up with his ability, and even potentially close out the game. So that's just one really powerful thing you could be doing with the card. And then we also just have some other cards to just round out what black could be doing. So you could think about utilizing Blitz Greymon, just because Blitz Greymon is another really powerful card. You could interact with Zubagon Punch, or you could just utilize him as some really solid removal, just because black doesn't necessarily have the best removal. Even though I'm not super fond of D-Digivolve, some disruption is better than no disruption. And then on top of that, you also have a slew of level 7s that you could be utilizing. So you could think about utilizing Millenniumon, Alter S, or Chaosmon, just because all of them are very powerful level 7s, and if your end goal is to just use Zubagon Punch to make a very powerful Digimon, all of these just work with Zubagon Punch natively. And then, as I mentioned before, if you really wanted to run a different tamer based on the types of cards that you could be utilizing, I think Marcus is probably the second best tamer next to the Black Tie from BT02, just because Marcus can at least gain you a memory for your Greymon's attacking. So if you're playing a Greymon-based deck for black, then Marcus could be a really good red tamer to utilize, and then that could even give you access to red options as well. So there's just a ton of things that you could do with this style of deck, all depending on what you want to be running. But I definitely think this is a really good base or foundation for a budget Zubagon Punch deck. Not like Blastmon was that expensive to begin with, but there's just a ton of different things that you could do, and this deck you can take into a whole bunch of different directions, all depending on what you want to play and how you want to play it. And I just feel like for a good budget deck, utilizing the D-Brigade stuff and the stuff from the starter deck definitely make things a lot easier, and it definitely is a really fun and interesting deck to play with a whole bunch of customization. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are different ways that you could support me in the channel. So one of those ways is I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so whenever you use that affiliate link to buy cards off of tcgplayer.com, then some of the money will go to supporting me in the channel. And on top of which, I also do stream over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu. So following and subbing is a good way to support me over on that platform as well. And on top of that, I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook. So whenever you buy one of my designs through them, then some of that money will also help go to supporting me in the channel. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.